Welcome to Frankly Hockey. I'm John Buccigross, reporting from Naples, Florida, 80 degrees and sunny. That's Frank Seravalli, the hockey insider, reporting from outside Philly with 2 feet of snow outside his house.
Yeah, not quite 2 feet, but over a foot, and cold enough where we're not going to see the other side of freezing for a solid 10 days. So this would have been a good week for an ODR. I'm not going to lie.
It would have.
But
if you could have got ahead of the snow removal, create the banks, would have been epic. Like you said, for 10 straight days of amazing skating. But hey, it's Monday, January the 26th, 2026, 1-2-6-2-6. So that can happen this time of year. There's 5 games tonight, Frank. I like this Islander Flyer game. That's like the sneaky of those teams bunched up going for playoffs. That could be a war. Could be a lot of fun. Ducks, Victory Plus at Edmonton. That's a fun one. We'll talk about them in a second. Happy birthday, Wayne Gretzky. January 26th. That's the date of the great one. 65 years old. And kids, 9 MVPs, 10 scoring championships, 10 Art Ross trophies. I played golf once with Wayne in 2009. It was me, Ray Ferraro, Russ Courtnall. And I'm thinking, geez, that's got to be a record for someone who played golf in a foursome with the most combined NHL goals ever for the other 3 guys, the layman and then 3 NHL players. That's 1,599 goals between the 3 of them. It's like 894, 408, and 297 for Russ Courtnall. But I'm thinking, Frank, someone played golf with like Wayne and Mario and Brett Hall. Some dude wrote a check at some charity event, right?
Oh, yeah.
And just blew
you got
me
dusted.
away.
Yeah.
Totally dusted. And hey, Peyton Krebs, it's also your birthday. 25 years old. I like how they slotted him now as the 4th line center on Buffalo. I love their setup, Frank. Curious to see what Kekalainen does down the stretch, maybe to add to this Buffalo. Just absolute Buffalo momentum right now.
Did somebody make another Bucci Parm Buffalo shirt?
They did. That's going to be available to the public. The other one was just for fun, like a one-off for me. But this one, actually, we're going to try to find a charity in Buffalo from the famous big Tage Thompson chicken parm picture. So yeah, that's coming soon. All right, Franks and Beans time. I have the beans. Frank has the Frank. I just want to remind the fans out there, Frank, overtime at the Olympics is 3-on-3 for 10 minutes, then a shootout, right? Before the gold medal game. Then it's 3-on-3 until somebody scores. So I'm not sure people were aware of that. Just want to, so I don't know. I don't know if the GMs or the Olympic teams were aware of that, or they thought about that when they were constructing their teams. But I guess they probably figured our top 6 can handle most of the 3-on-3, so we'll be fine. I guess how they look at that. Also, just another thing I had in my notes, and I'm going to share with the people. The NHL, their officiating roster, they have 35 full-time refs, 34 full-time linesmen. Referees, if you're curious how many games they work, they're expected to work 73 of the 82. Linesmen around 74. So again, I'm not sure if people were aware of their schedules.
And through travel and traveling solo, like sometimes you go out on a 17-day trip and you don't come back home.
Commercial. They don't fly charter like the teams do. John Gibson's won 17 of 19, Frank. He's won 8 in a row. I mean, talk about a goalie heater. That guy's on one.
He is, and he's a big reason why the Red Wings are where they are in the standings, because not a ton has changed from their metrics year over year, except for their goaltending.
And Cam Talbot's been a really nice spotty backup, veteran guy, good backup. My new college hockey rankings came out on the X. The top 5, Frank. Michigan still number 1. Michigan State's coming on strong, number 2. North Dakota's good again, number 3. Gavin McKenna in Penn State, number 4. Western Michigan 5. This weekend, Michigan State, Penn State. Big weekend in Happy Valley. And Gavin McKenna, since the World Juniors, Frank, before you go, 6 games since the World Juniors. 6 goals, 4 assists, 10 points. Almost 2 points a game since he's come back.
And outdoors at Beaver Stadium as well, 70,000 tickets sold. I can't wait to see the unveil of the Penn State jerseys. I don't know if you saw the little tease that they did, but they have the football in the back of the collar, and they've got the the collar is set up exactly like their football uniform. So I don't know how close they're going to get to making it look like that, but
love that.
That would be chef's kiss how traditional the Penn State football uniform is.
And again, the weather looks great in terms of for ice preservation. We'll see if there's a snow globe effect and to keep an eye on the weather. Sometimes one storm comes and they kind of have a little run. We'll see. Penguins on pace for 101 points. Who saw that coming? 101 point pace for the Penguins. More on them and the Bryan Rust hit later in the show. Top 4 rookie goal scorers, Frank. How about your boy Beckett Seneca? Hat trick last night. He's up to 18. He's going to pot 30. You talk about a release. Oh my God, that release is sinister. Oliver Kapanen still at 16. Matthew Schaefer, 13. And how about your boy Fraser Minton with 13 goals now?
Yeah, I wonder how the Toronto Maple Leafs are feeling about that Fraser Minton trade last year for Brandon Carlo.
Ooh.
It's not looking good. And we'll talk about the Leafs a little bit later in the show, but if they're buyers this year, if they're anything but sellers, I think they're in for it.
Fraser Minton traded with a first-round pick, which might be obviously a non-playoff pick this summer, and a conditional and a fourth-round pick, which was last year for Brandon Carlo. Man, I think Don Sweeney might have hit a home run there. By the way, Ducks' 7th consecutive win. Longest active streak in the NHL right now and tied for their longest in the season. So again, they're one of those up and down teams. And right now they are up. And it sounds like Pat Verbeek might be big game fishing, maybe, Frank?
Maybe. Yeah. Look, we talked a little bit on the Ducks broadcast last night about the forward market and took a peek at who's available there because the Ducks have been connected to a bunch of forwards. It seems like the time would be right to make a small splash, not a big one, because if you're not getting in the top 3 in the Pacific, you do run the risk in the wild card of getting Colorado in the first round, which that would be a tough one. To quote Daryl Sutter, whoever gets that feels like a waste of 8 days.
I saw that Panarin thing. I don't know. That doesn't make sense to me in Anaheim. There's so many great forwards there. You want them to learn.
Makes zero sense for me. I could see them going after another center. Like if you said to me, Vincent Trocheck, that could make sense to me. Reunite him with some former Rangers, versatility, plays with an edge, is very productive. If you said to me, Braden Shen from St. Louis, that could make sense to me. But the Panarin one does not compute.
Yeah. By the way, David Pastrnak is 3 points shy of 900. That means he's going to get 1,000 points next year, Frank. Probably sometime next year, late next year, 1,000 career points. Like, doesn't he still think? Don't you look at him as youngish? Again, 29 years old. That's pretty young to be sniffing 1,000 anyway, right? He'll get it when he's 30. He's got a May birthday, but he is sneaky, like early success, early Hall of Fame guy.
Well, Draisaitl just turned 30, and he, of course, hit 1,000 this year. The fact that Pastrnak might beat him, and the fact that Pastrnak is having arguably the best season that no one is talking about.
Yes.
Pretty good. I mean, when he hits 100 this year, that'll be 4 seasons in a row with 100 points. That's hard to do.
Top 5. Yeah, he's a top 5 player in the league this year. You know, you play with McKinnon and Makar, you're going to have a career year. You play with, and McDavid and Draisaitl use each other to help their numbers. Everyone in the history of the game has done that. It helped Esposito. Esposito helped Orr. Like, that's the way it works. Pasta, not so much these last couple of years. I mean, he has turned into an elite passer. It is fun to watch. Hey, how about a non-hockey one time only, probably Frankenbean. Sam Darnold, first USC quarterback to start in the Super Bowl. I thought it was worthy for the show. Bite on that. Dougie Hamilton. He's hot, Frank. Goal and assist last night. Point streaks at 7. You could trade him high now. The price is high. Sell him high.
Well, I was going to say, look, you're still not going to get great value. You're not going to get any value. But what this does is make the trade easier to complete. Points in 7 straight games. And, of course, replacing Luke Hughes in that opportunity, in that role. I mean, it's allowed him to get back to being a productive player. So maybe Dougie Hamilton never stopped being productive. He just had the opportunity taken away from him in favor of Luke Hughes.
I just wonder if Carolina makes sense. Go back there again. I don't know why I'm whispering.
Yeah, I don't know why you're whispering either, but I mean, they have Shane Gostisbehere in that role. I don't know that makes any sense. I don't know that they're going to pay 2x of Shane Gostisbehere to get Dougie Hamilton.
Right.
And I've got the fuzz from that very fuzzy hot dog.
Yeah, we keep biting the hot dog and it's on the floor. Do you have a dog?
It was never on the floor. I bought this fresh from Amazon just for the Franks and Beans segment.
Did you disinfect it and deodorize it?
I did not. It came in plastic. I'm sure that's good. Microplastics are good. Haven't you heard?
The Panthers have won 6 of 7 road games. They're panthering again, Frank. Just a quick Matthew Tkachuk update. If you're wondering, he's played 4 games, no goals yet, 3 assists, playing 18.51 a game. So Matthew just slowly getting his way back into it. Brandon Bussey is 19-3-1. I'm really curious about this contract, Frank, because someone like him, he's probably got
Friday. You weren't here.
I know. I brought it up first 2 weeks ago. I broke this story. I broke it.
You were the genesis. You got me thinking about it, and I made some calls.
Okay, so what do you? Is this a 3x3? Is it a 2x7?
They're closing in. They've got a couple different options on the table, and my thought process is 2 or 4 years. I mean, the Bussey camp would potentially take a 1-year deal. Hey, we're ready to prove it and come back again. But it's not going to be 6. Like, it's not going to be super long term, and probably not going to be 3. So they want to make sure that they position him so that he's getting another deal in his very early 30s, or as he turns 30. That's part of the concern. And also want to get him some security in the here and now. And the Canes are wrestling with this. They feel like they've seen enough to place a wager on Bussey, but there have been other goalies. The Hamburglar is the best example, that have had insane 25-game runs that don't have the goods to sustain it. I think Bussey has a bit more than that. He's not really unpedigreed. He's undrafted, but every stop, his numbers have been good. AHL all-rookie team, 3 straight years with the Providence Bruins, well north of 900. This is not a nobody goalie. It's just a guy that hadn't really been given a crack in the NHL.
And if I'm his camp, I'm the opposite. The longer the term, the higher I need it. That's how I look at it.
Exactly. The Canes aren't going to get to that place. The Canes aren't going to make a 6-year commitment at $4 million probably.
Yeah. See, that'd be tempting if I'm Bussey. And I think if you're the Carolina, that's a decent bet.
I think goaltending is voodoo, and I'm not signing any goalie outside of the really special ones north of 3 years.
I think most GMs feel that way too. It smells like a 3x3. What do you think? What's your bet? I'll write it down. And when that happens,
I think it could be something like 2 x 2.5. That would make sense.
That's low for me. That's
too low for me. I mean, $5 million is life-changing. This guy has been playing on AHL salary.
That's true. $80,000 a year. Yeah. All right. If they say 2 x 3, I'll take it. But you're right. It's probably like 2.75 x 2. All right. We'll see. And one more, Frank, before we hit the rundown. Brock Nelson, 27 goals in 50 games. That's one more than he had last year in 80. Nice hat trick by him in Toronto yesterday. And that kind of takes us, I kind of use that, Frank, as my bridge from Frank and Beans to the rundown, because we're going to talk a little Olympics here, Olympic roster. Obviously, if you're a golfer out there, on the first tee, if it's early and you knock one in the woods or in the pond, you're allowed a breakfast ball. You get a free shot. Now, if you're playing a tournament, you can't take a breakfast ball. But if you're playing for money, sometimes everyone will agree. 1 breakfast ball, 2nd tee shot. GMs, if they had a breakfast ball, Frank, and they could maybe, and they can, I guess they could try to do whatever they want, but they got to work with the player. What about, let's start with Team Canada. Any breakfast balls out there?
I would, if I were managing Team Canada, I would want a breakfast ball on Drew Doughty. Now, if you're bringing him to Milan solely to be a great presence in the room and a mascot and the guy who brings the energy, then by all means, for sure. And I love Drew Doughty and I love the energy that he brings, but it is abundantly clear that he hasn't played anywhere close to the level required. And if you look at, these are the numbers just since the day the rosters were named. 0 points. 0 points. This is a guy making $11 million a year, minus 12. And then you look at Evan Bouchard and the game that he had on Saturday night. I mean, this is like one of the best games of a defenseman ever. 6 points, a hat trick. By the way, fun stat for Evan Bouchard. First ever hat trick at any level, including minor hockey. Never did it at minor hockey. And does it. There's only been 5 guys that have had 6 points in a game on the back end that also included a hat trick. So he's part of a lead company, and it's not just one game. If you're talking about 2 guys that are going to impact the blue line at this point in time, I'm taking Evan Bouchard over Drew Doughty. And that also, to be fair, is not revisionist history. Evan Bouchard was on my final Olympic roster projection. I just think the way Doughty's played, they're looking at him through a lens of 4 years ago, 2 years ago, and not this year, because his play has not been at that level.
Yeah, funny. Frank does the rundown for Frankly Hockey the night before the show. That's kind of the rough draft, and we kind of tweak it right up until game time to give you the best 60 minutes of hockey content anywhere. And so I was watching over the weekend, or it was the St. Louis game, and I was like, "Ooh, boy, Drew looks slow. Like it's man." And like you said, you can't just bring a guy to be good in the room because he might have to play. Now, again, by the time he might has to play, then you can really roll your top four a lot. And you're talking about, especially Team USA with their very easy draw. You're kind of, this tournament's a 2-game tournament in a lot of ways, and Canada should be there as well. But just in case he plays, do you really take that chance that and he is the best guy in the room. He's fun at the morning skates. He's awesome. One of my all-time favorite hockey people. But what do you do about that? You go to him and say, "Hey, Drew, can you pretend you're hurt or something?"
Nothing. You're not going to say that to a proud Canadian who's been dying to play in the Olympics again. And by the way, Thomas Harley has not been nearly as good this season as he was last year. So I feel like Canada got a little bit complacent in terms of their thought process. Hey, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We won 4 nations. We're just going to bring all 8 guys back. That if Canada does not win the gold, their undoing is going to be with this blue line. And Devon Toews, of course, has been hurt. So, obviously we've been monitoring that situation as well.
How about let's jump over to Team USA then. Of course, they have an injury situation with Brayden Point. We talked about that injury in Philly. It certainly looked like that sprained MCL side-to-side move. What about him? At first, initially, I think when we brought this up, I mentioned Connor Bedard, but he really hasn't regained his pre-injury form yet, Frank. 1 empty net goal and 3 assists in his 8 games. So again, I don't know I know he's a great player, and the tournament is in a couple weeks, and he probably would be fine. Everybody, we talked about the analogy of when Phil Mickelson and Fred Couples drive down Magnolia Lane at Augusta National. Everything reboots. It's the biggest tournament of their life. They're going to play well. They're going to be a different person. And I believe all these players are going to be different people when they get to Milan and they put on their country sweater and it's the Olympics. They think about the gold. Everyone's going to play incredibly well, and they're going to have adrenaline, and they're going to go. But what do you think?
I'm with you on Bedard. Hasn't gotten back to that same burst, that same speed. And these were the 5 guys that we've really kept an eye on as potential replacements for Brayden Point. Now, Team Canada is still holding out hope. They're going to have to make a decision here in the next 5 to 7 days about Brayden Point and whether or not he can go. They're trying to give him as much runway as possible to play. But the guy that you'd really have to be thinking long and hard about if you're Canada is Zach Hyman and how well he's played of late. So he's got 19 goals in this last stretch. And only Nathan McKinnon had more with 21 in the same period of time. But the way that Hyman has played, the chemistry with the plug and play chemistry with Connor McDavid, I think is also really important to keep in mind in terms of roster building. And I've said this forever as I've been the huge Zach Hyman advocate on a national stage. He does something that no one else on your team does. And Brandon Hagel brings a little bit of that, but the premier forechecking forward in the league, he hunts pucks and does things for you that you need to win. So if you think Zach Hyman isn't going to help you win, like that's the guy that I would pick right now. Wyatt Johnson has been great. Love Sam Bennett and the edge that he brings. But look at the games played. Look at the goals per game. There isn't anyone who's done it better than Zach Hyman in a short period of time since coming back from that wrist injury.
Yeah, you mentioned playing with McDavid, his ability in the room, although you won't really need that in Team Canada. There's plenty of guys who are fine that regard. And I'm sure I assume both sides looked at 4 nations as the ultimate 1 year ago. This is what the games will probably look like. Dump and chase, grinding, low scoring. Hyman's one of those guys that gets those kinds of goals. And, again, he's not a one-shot guy per se. Like on the other side, that's why we were looking at, and we'll talk about Caufield and DeBrincat and Robertson, amazing shooters. But it does seem too easy. It does seem too easy to plug him in. I know he's not a center, and he's not speedy like Point at his height. But if you talk about a knee injury,
you don't need a center.
Mm-hmm.
Sidney Crosby's playing the wing, for Christ's sake. Like Sidney Crosby can play center. Like that's insane. Bo Horvat can play center. Bo Horvat's back in the lineup. He's playing again. Big sigh of relief for Team Canada. He's been good, and the Islanders are happy to have him back. There's a million center options. You don't need another center. What you need is a quality player and a quality fit. Look at that Hagel spot. There's a reason Hagel has been there in a lot of projections, because he is, I'm going to say it, I believe Brandon Hagel is Zach Hyman light.
All right. Well, then let's shift now to Team USA, because right now, Frank, Jason Robertson is third in the league with 30 goals. Cole Caufield is fourth in the league with 29. Alex DeBrincat tied for eighth with 27. And as we can see here, but we'll focus on Robertson and Caufield. But DeBrincat's having a great year. He's kind of like, he plays a similar game to Caufield, very similar players. And again, he's only 2 goals behind. They're a lot alike, and you could easily. But right now with Caufield, the way he's going, his big game, his confidence, power play, late game, he thrives on it. Yeah, he's not going to win the Selke ever. I get it. But what about breakfast ball time in America?
I mean, for me, it's got to be JT Miller. And I know you look at, so these numbers are since January 2nd, the day that Team USA was named. And you look at it and you say, JT Miller, 10 points in 8 games. That's pretty good for a New York Ranger team that in the meantime has released a letter and had gone out to California and gotten thumped. So maybe not bad. 10 points in 8 games. Okay, fine. I'm looking for magic, and I'm looking for high-end skill that only these types of players can provide. And that's why I've got JT Miller sandwiched between Cole Caufield and Jason Robertson here in the numbers. Look, with all due respect to Alex DeBrincat, who isn't on the graphic, I don't know how much time Team USA really spent talking and considering Alex DeBrincat. There's a reason why Bill Guerin, going through the roster selection process, popped into Montreal a couple times. It's to get eyes on Cole Caufield. And he had no better seat than last week when Cole Caufield beat the Minnesota Wild in OT at Bell Center. You mentioned 3-on-3. It is a real thing. And I'm not saying that it's even a guarantee that if Cole Caufield was on the team, that he'd be on the ice in 3-on-3. But how many times in one season can we talk about the magic that the Montreal Canadiens have late in games, in OT, that all runs through the stick of one player? And Jason Robertson just continues to produce. Both those guys in that stretch since January 2nd, you're talking about 24 days since then. Both of them have 2 game-winning goals. I'm not knocking JT Miller. The Rangers haven't won a lot. If I'm Team USA, I love the versatility that Miller brings and the compete, but I want magic, because magic is what wins you gold.
And I kind of see, like you said, remember, I was a big Alex Tuck guy, and I would replace Miller with Tuck. I just think, man, what a penalty killer, 6-on-5 guy, plays goalie, block shots, better skater than Miller now, great hands, pops in about 30 a year. And then I kind of looking at Connor and Keller, and that's where I would go with Robertson and Caufield. I just think you really up your team in those 2 areas as well. Now you have all kinds of goal scoring, because, Guentzel will play that kind of game. Boldy, Guentzel, they're just obviously a level up, at least production-wise, from Keller. And just and Caufield's a different kind of goal scorer than Kyle Connor, and as is Robertson. That's what I like about those guys. And but again, and it kind of goes back to the Herb Brooks thing, right? We talked about that Netflix special, which is coming up later in the month on another one on the Miracle on Ice. Yeah, in fact, I saw a line saying someone saw it, one of the media people, and says it's actually a little different perspective, because you thought, what more can you say? HBO's was great. I thought ESPN's was great. And of course, that the famous thing there, I'm not picking the best players. I want to pick the best team. And that's what Bill, that's what he told us on Frankly Hockey, that, he wants to pick the best team. And, but sometimes the best team is the best players.
Alex, if you could throw the Team USA roster up there again, the forward group, I wonder, since we did just give Brock Nelson his flowers, and Brock Nelson gave them huge minutes in the gold medal game, or the Four Nations Face-Off Championship game, Brock Nelson has to be in the lineup for the tournament.
Great point.
Right? There's no way Brock Nelson isn't. We just had these situated, not for any reason, but there's no way Brock Nelson's on the outside looking in.
Yeah, you'd switch him and JT Miller for sure. And you might even switch Trocheck and Thompson. Like, your fourth line could be Tage, Jake, and Brock.
I could see that.
Because Brock and Jake are good enough defensively if you don't believe Tage, but Tage Thompson's good in the wall, and he'll play his heart out. Like, he'll do anything. So you're right. You put Nelson there, fourth line center, Thompson on the wing. Suddenly it's like, oh, even without Caufield and Robertson, that's a pretty good team. But again, having Cole Caufield next to Austin Matthews, I was like, I think I'd kind of like that right there. And then maybe Robertson where Connor is. But again, it's hairs. But right. And again, what if Kyle Connor got he's got 23 goals. What if he had 27 and Jason Robertson had 23 or 20? It's very close. So, but you're right.
I'm not sure that Clayton
tweak
Keller is one of those guys that's not in the crosshairs to be sitting out too. Like, I mean, he's a good player. Of course, there's a reason he's there. But like, if you said to me, I want Trocheck's versatility over Clayton Keller, I could totally understand that.
Yeah, take some face-offs on certain dots with Matthews for sure. Yeah, I agree. Sign or flip Mason Marchment? I like this question. Mason Marchment of the Blue Jackets. Blue Jackets got him for a fourth this summer and a second in 27. 8 goals, 3 assists, 11 points in 9 games. This is a tough one. I don't think the Blue Jackets will have enough to make the postseason. I root for them. Obviously, I went to high school and college in Ohio. I want them to, but if I had to, I would say no. What do you think they're going to do with him? Sign or flip?
I agree with you. I don't think the Jackets have enough to get in, and this has been unquestionably a great trade. Because I think you could flip him now. I was surprised that he only brought back a second and fourth in the moment in time, and Seattle I think they felt like they had to do it, and they've taken off since then. I'm not saying it's related to him. Part of it is they got a bunch of other pieces in their lineup back, but he, quote, just wasn't a fit. So they cut bait and move on pre-holiday roster freeze, and 8 goals in 9 games. One of those guys with a hat trick in January over the weekend. I think you can get a first for Mason Marchment. I do.
Ooh.
And I think that the Blue Jackets should end up moving on and flipping him, given all that we've laid out. But I'm not trying to be on the fence about this. The reason I asked the question is because I think it's an interesting study. These guys are hard to find. Guys that have size that can make things happen. So you trade Mason Marchment. Let's just hypothetically play the game and say it is for a first. But then you're going to go out in the summer and say, I need another Mason Marchment. How do you make those two things work if you're Don Waddell?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, if they like Voronkov and they like Marchenko and they like Fantilli, and okay, we'll keep Boone Jenner. And I'm up to 6 forwards. Like, I got a young guy coming. Caton Lidstrom's close, but probably another 2 more years. So yeah, that's how you look at it. But yeah, if you're Columbus, you should probably go 1 year at a time. And if he can help you next year, you should probably keep him. And but yeah, you're right, because a good team would trade for him, so it would be a very late first. So you could see a team 25 to 32. Yeah, I'll give a 1 for Mason Marchment, and especially if I think I see a slot I can keep him, then it definitely will be a 1, right? So yeah, maybe. So that would be interesting to see. Don Waddell if he does flip it, he does better than his last deal. I imagine from pride factor, most GMs would want to do better, right?
Well, and I think you can with how well he's played.
Absolutely. There will be math, and the math is fuzzy for the Toronto Maple Leafs, Frank. Man, they look good, but then suddenly you see this recent slide there, and the math gets fuzzy. We're just about 30 games left. For a while, they're back, they're fine, they'll make it. And then, oops, all it takes is a bad week like this. That's the thing about this. And those teams who are 5 points now, we mentioned this was going to be the month, the separation month. We told you that earlier in the month. We would end this month with teams 5 to 7 points behind. Oh my goodness, we only have 1 full month left. February's a partial month. April's a partial month. All we got is March. Are we in it or not? Mm-hmm. So what do you do if you're Toronto?
You sell. You're not a buyer. There's nothing, like, the math doesn't work. The math isn't mathing. And look, I know the Leafs have had, look at the press box shot as Willie Nylander gave the camera the finger on Sunday. There are a pile of guys that are sitting there that have impacted this season, and there's no question about that. But even when they've had spurts of health, they've only shown really one flash of brilliance this season. And that's not enough to say we are a firm playoff team. Let's go fix this. Let's go throw good money after bad. Let's add. I don't know why or how that would make any sense for this Leaf team, which now has to ask itself lots of existential questions about where they go from here and who is the core. we've sort of been dancing around the question for a while, but who should be part of this team moving forward? And it's time.
All right. Well, our guest today is Craig Button, and then I'm glad he is because he's the kind of guy who's worked in a front office before, and certainly, some fans and some local media, they really are sell happy. They for some reason, they like that story. I understand you want to go for the home run, you want to get a chance to get a game changer, and really what you just saw with the Patriots, a classic example. Bottom out, just start over, and they end up getting Drake May, right? A franchise quarterback, third overall, because they made the switch, and they even moved on for Mac Jones, another first round pick. And I know teams and local people like that. Sometimes that is tantalizing to do that. So let's bring in Craig Button. And Craig, you've been involved in NHL front offices before, and as I just mentioned, some fans, some local media, they really like, for some reason, they cling to the sell instead of let's why not go for it? I mean, there are Cinderella stories. We want to win. We want to get in the postseason. Shouldn't we grind and try to win? So how do you balance that when you know that sometimes going backwards a little bit is truly advantageous and can reap big rewards?
John, what I would say in response to that is you got to deal in reality. What are your chances to be successful? And what does it mean if you take a different path? Now, there's certain teams that I think it's very clear. I mean, nobody would tell the Tampa Bay Lightning or the Colorado Avalanche or the Dallas Stars, I think you guys should be selling and kind of go for a rebuild. And nobody would be telling the Chicago Blackhawks or the Calgary Flames, you guys should be buying and trying to get. So I think it starts with a level of reality and where your team is at. I mean, look at it from a sliding scale. So let's just say you're the 18th team in the National Hockey League. So you're the 18th team in the National Hockey League, and you go, okay, we'd like to make the playoffs. What does it mean to make the playoffs? Okay, what does it mean if we don't make the playoffs? And you're trying to evaluate all that. I'll give you a perfect example. Well, maybe not perfect, but my perfect example. The Columbus Blue Jackets. They were at a period when they had Bobrovsky and Panarin, and they were both unrestricted free agents. But the market in Columbus was very different at that point in time. And Jarmo Kekalainen had to make a decision. He said, okay, I could trade these guys, and I could probably get something back in terms of draft picks, maybe some prospects or whatnot. But the marketplace was in a place where trying to move forward and be part of the playoffs was significant for them. And they ultimately they got two things. They got the playoffs, and then they lost the two players. It may have set them back, right? And that is the dilemma. That's why I use the Columbus Blue Jackets as a really good example. I really believe there's 8-10 teams that should be clearly looking at like the future. They shouldn't be looking at the present. They shouldn't be fooling themselves. They should be absolutely looking how they're gonna build for the future. And then I think you have some other teams that better look at, okay, what do we need to do to move forward? And is there opportunity? If there is an opportunity, then you may have to take that, to use your term, just a step back. And then you have your other teams that are clearly trying to be bold and take a step forward. That's how I look at it. It's not easy to just say, sell, we're going into a rebuild and sell it out totally. There's examples of it done well. There's examples of it not done well or taking longer than anybody anticipate. And there's also the part of it that says, okay, what does this mean for our franchise and our sponsors, our ticket holders? Because it's one thing when you're Chicago Blackhawks and you're coming off of 3 Stanley Cups, or the LA Kings and you're coming off of 2 Stanley Cups. But it for other teams that haven't had that success, the Toronto Maple Leafs, what is their reality?
Okay, so let's dive in. The toughest part about the idea of the Toronto Maple Leafs sort of mini rebuild or whatever you want to call it is they don't have anything for the future. Their prospect pool is relatively thin. They don't have a first-round pick in either of the next 2 drafts. They don't have a second this year. They don't have a third in 2027. So how does a team that is stuck right now and potentially or maybe even mathematically likely not a playoff team How do they get moving toward the future if there's not much in the pipeline to look forward to?
So the way I would answer that, Frank, is what do they want their future to look like? Do they want their future to look like, okay, we might compete for a playoff spot, we might not, we're not a contender, we're not at the bottom of the league. To me, the Toronto Maple Leafs have opportunity. So, and here's where the opportunity lay. The opportunity lay in what they do with their star players, not in helping the Toronto Maple Leafs with respect to their on-ice play, because they're good players. I'm talking about Matthews and Nylander and Morgan Riley. It's about what can those guys do for you moving forward. I'm talking about trading them. I don't think there's any other path. I think that the Toronto Maple Leafs had an unbelievable opportunity. They went scorched earth. They built up their team. They had some really good players. They had some success in the regular season and zero success in the playoffs. Like that's getting further and further in the rearview mirror. I think if they want to continue to kid themselves, then they'll just continue along this path. I think they have to have the hard discussions. And it's not easy. Those guys have no trade no movement clauses, no trade. You got to sit down and say, are you open to it? Because this is our reality.
Yeah, I think Nylander's the guy. Right. I think that's the guy you focus on. I think LA would love to get him. Would that cost them Byfield? Would you want to go Matthews Byfield down the middle? That might be part of your reconstruction. Like we saw what Boston did. I thought Don Sweeney did a great job last year. He kind of identified, we're going to go back a little bit. They got Fraser Minton, looks like a pro. They got a 1 this summer, Marchand, conditional 1. But they're still in the mix. Like they're still a playoff team. They're very viable, and they might bounce back. Probably not so much this year, but next year they could be ready to go again. Like I would guess, Craig, that's kind of the model, right?
Yeah, but Don Sweeney, to your point, he recognized his reality. We're talking about a franchise icon in Brad Marchand. You're telling me William Nylander and Austin Matthews are franchise icons? Not
right.
Sorry. Not you might go, geez, that's harsh. Sorry. I know Austin Matthews has the all-time goal-scoring record for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Like, he's not iconic. Like, he's just a really very gifted player. So Don Sweeney said, wait a sec here. We're moving in a different direction here. And the direction, we're not staying put. We're not going to stay at the side of the road and watch cars pass us. And we might not pass anybody, but we're not going to let teams pass us. They wanted to become more competitive. They recognized what they were going to try to do in the draft, and they went about and did it. And again, they embraced it. And I think this year has been one where it's been real solid for the Boston Bruins in terms of competing. They still have David Pastrnak, who's a great player, and then you have Charlie McAvoy, goaltending. They have all these pieces now that are coming. I mean, you know this, John. I mean, Dean Letourneau, who had a real struggle last year at Boston College, is really moving forward nicely. James Hagens is moving forward nicely. I think they're still probably a year to 18 months away from helping that team, but you can see that there's real promise in these two young players, and with respect to where the Boston Bruins are trying to head to.
Okay, so let's talk about LA, a team that Bucci mentioned that I think is really not in all that dissimilar of a position. They've tried to be a playoff team that's breaking through to have success in the postseason. They bring in Ken Holland to help support this group that, to try and get them over the hump. And yet they seem to be this year in a worse position than they've even been in. And yet they've got a little bit of Nashville Predators in them that they've committed a little bit longer term now to guys that are in their 30s, that they've got some real hard decisions to make. What do you see in your crystal ball for the Kings as you look forward?
Well, you see a team that's right in that area of like again, an 18th place team, a 19th place team. Like, are you closer to 23rd or are you closer to 13th? And is there a difference in terms of what does that mean for you going forward, Frank? And how do you get offensive players? How do you get scoring? They have a tough time scoring. How do you build out the roster where it can handle different challenges depending on who you're playing? So if you ask me where the LA Kings are at, I think they're closer to the to the bottom third of the league than they are to the upper third of the league. So, we call it the mushy middle. That's how I kind of use that sliding scale. You better be careful. You better be real careful if you're the LA Kings, because you could fall even further down. I think they're a perfect team, maybe perfect, but they're a team like the Toronto Maple Leafs. You better recognize your reality.
By the way, Kings Blue Jackets game postponed today, rescheduled to March 9th. The snowstorm, obviously, some effect on the NHL schedule. So Kings not playing the Blue Jackets, as that has been moved to March the 9th. Yeah, because that's the thing too, Craig, right? Things can change, but the Rangers didn't hire Mike Sullivan to rebuild, and the Kings didn't hire Kenny Holland to rebuild, right? So so what do you do then when you realize, oops, like we maybe should do this now?
Well, there's nothing wrong with having a top-notch coach in Mike Sullivan. You just have to say, "Hey, Mike, this is our reality now, and we want you to be a big part."
Yeah.
Ken Holland, went into a situation in Edmonton where they were trying to get to a different point, and they did. And
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything negative with having with changing and knowing, okay, we got good people here, we got people that are competent. I think they have to feel that they have the desire, the passion to carry forth through this. I think that's the key. You need to have a discussion with them about where you're headed and how you're going to proceed, because they're quality and you want quality. And certainly you're always looking at what makes up a difference there. Well, we talked about the New England Patriots. Okay, so the Patriots are going back to the Super Bowl. I mean, Gerard Mayo, who was a big part of the success in New England, like, he wasn't successful, and after 1 year they said see ya, and they went to Mike Vrabel, obviously. But sometimes, just saying we're going to go with a younger guy. I think Marco Sturm had shown in the LA system, and LA as an assistant and down, and they knew him in Boston. Like, there was experience around. So, I mean, every scenario is going to have something different. If I got Mike Sullivan, I'm going to say, hey, Mike, here's where we're headed, and I need you to coach these guys and to really help them. That's what I'd be doing if I'm Chris Drury.
So one team that's statistically in the mushy middle that I think I view with a bit of a different lens is the Washington Capitals, because yes, this year has been a disappointment, but they've got so many young players that were trying to chase career years last year, and their system is stacked, meaning like their future is bright.
Yep.
That's a team that, at least publicly or privately, Chris Patrick, has presented to teams, hey, I'm interested in making a big swing to get better. Does that make sense to you with where the Caps are heading?
Yeah, it does. I mean, keep in mind, Pierre-Luc Dubois has been out, right? So that was a big swing he made. And Pierre-Luc played really well there last year, but he's been out of the lineup. They have some terrific young players. They have terrific young players already playing on their team, and they have terrific young players coming. It's funny. I was saying this the other day. I said, like if I was Chris Patrick, I'd be phoning the Ottawa Senators and asking them if they're interested in Charlie Lindgren, and because their goaltending is such a mess up there, and because you have Logan Thompson, you try to work, like, that's where you can take advantage. Now maybe it becomes bigger. Maybe Ottawa looks at it as something bigger. But I agree with you, Frank. The Washington Capitals find themselves in a spot where they wish they weren't. But I think that's a good team. And you think about how they're going to be next year and the year after. I don't see any downfall. There's not these guys, I mean, Alex aside, there's not these 30-something players that you're counting on to be a big part of what your present success is. And I think that really helps the Washington Capitals in being bold, in helping make a decision to try to push up into that upper 8 to 10 teams.
And last one for me, Craig. How about the Penguins on pace for 101 points? I mean, did you ever see that coming?
No, not even close. And how about Stuart Skinner? How about what he's done, right? And, we've seen Stuart Skinner play really well, and we've seen him have the dips. So I think that the inconsistency is what has more or less defined Stuart Skinner. Crosby is a superstar. I mean, he just drives that team in so many ways. Malkin has had an unbelievably great rebound season. And, you think about what Dan Muse has gone in and done. He's empowered the young players, much like Mike Sullivan did back when he took over as coach coming up. We got these young guys, we got to let them play. Ben Kindle has 2 goals in Vancouver on Sunday night. Like giving the young players a chance, letting them come through and letting them know that you're part of it. And when you have a great leader and one of the greatest leaders that's ever played the game in Sidney Crosby, guiding that along and showing the way. I mean, it's a pretty nice setup for Kyle Dubas and Dan Muse, I would say. But certainly something when we talked about, will Crosby be traded? Will Malcolm be traded? Frank, you know better than me. But are the Pittsburgh Penguins a team to watch for maybe? Because Kyle Dubas has done some things in acquiring some players and draft picks where he might be able to do some things near the trade deadline to bolster his lineup.
Yeah. What a story. Ben Kindle, first game in Van, 2 goals in front of 192 friends and family members, which is a crazy number. There would have been some new headwear that would have needed to be purchased if he had gotten to that hat trick. But last one for me, we talked about in the beginning of the show, just the idea of hey, if you could hand Doug Armstrong and Team Canada an Olympic roster do-over, you get one change that you get to make and swap someone in or out. Would you still have Drew Doughty on the team?
So that's the question. They want Drew for a different reason. It's not. I don't think you can measure Drew based on his play. They want Drew for his voice, for his experience, for the character that he brings. And I'm not talking about character in the sense of leadership. I'm talking about he's a character. He can keep things serious. He can keep things light. So when you have the advantage of having 8 defenders on your roster and you don't have to dress everybody, that's why they want Drew Doughty. So I want Drew Doughty. I don't want Colton Parayko.
And would Evan Bouchard be your guy?
Oh, yeah, exactly, John. Yes, Evan Bouchard would be the guy.
Okay.
100%.
And, I mean, not for nothing, Thomas Harley hasn't been nearly as good this year as he was last year.
I thought Jacob Chikrin should have had that spot, not Thomas Harley.
Yeah,
so now you asked for 1. Now I've given you 2. Do I get any more? I think Zach Hyman should
only one breakfast ball. Only one breakfast ball off the first tee, Craig.
Okay. Even if you buy the mulligans, John. Even if you buy mulligans,
that's right.
And you have
Charity
4
event, you could buy mulligans. I don't believe in that philosophy. It's a we got to keep it a competition.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree.
His shirt is heavily ironic with what North America went through this last weekend. Craig Button, thank you for bringing some light via your shirt to a snowy, dark week.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Frank.
Love it. Thank you, Craig Button, as always. And let's ask the insider. I don't play this game as much on X anymore, Frank. Guess the suspension number. But Bryan Rust. But there's a reason why we're doing this is because you might have a take that's a little off speed. We like off speed takes.
Yeah, so I've watched this play 14 ways from Sunday, and I'm struggling with this one. I mean, it seems like Bryan Rust is pending a hearing, and I don't like the play. But in my view, the injury to Brock Besser here comes from Ricard Raquel hammering him in the back after the sort of, yes, is there head contact with his shoulder? Yes. But it's a double whammy. And then he also lands on Sidney Crosby's thigh. I think that's who that is. So
ouch. Yeah.
I think this is a confluence of events, not a confluence of 3 rivers. This is a confluence of events for Brock Besser, and it's unfortunate, but I don't know. Like, this one is not like a 4-alarm fire for me.
Yeah, the puck was obviously, Besser was fishing at the puck. Russ was obviously trying to shoulder him. He's not going to, guys aren't ever going for heads with their shoulders and elbows. And sometimes when you realize, I can't get him, your elbow's going to naturally come up. He's not looking to elbow him. It's just he's trying to get his shoulder closer, and that's what happens.
I mean, it's not pretty, and it's
No.
really unfortunate for Brock Besser, but I don't love a suspension here if that's what ends up being the call from the Department of Player Safety.
Because again, Rust saw him fish the puck out. He's thinking, uh-oh. Now, he could have led with his stick and just dove towards the stick area and not try to take him out. But he was, he's thinking, okay, as he fishes, I want to get him, bump his shoulder before he can shoot it.
I'm trying to body the guy to prevent
Right, he's trying to body.
Chance.
Right.
This is not a middle of the ice. No. I'm just fishing for a head. This is totally different.
Right. And Raquel, we see guys get pushed like that. It wasn't, and the violent factor and the force, it was like 5 or 6 out of 10. It wasn't even go 30 feet and ram a guy. But like you said, just wrong place, wrong time. But Rust is getting a hearing. Would not be surprised if he got a game because, like you said, it just looked bad. And sometimes that's enough. Hashtag hockey. We scour Planet social media to bring you the constant variety of hockey. And this was pretty cool. I was watching Penn State, Wisconsin over the weekend. Big Ten Network had some nice college hockey. That nice doubleheader, Minnesota, Michigan State, Wisconsin, Penn State. Watched them both. And Micah Parsons, of course, now employed in Wisconsin. Green Bay Packer, injured toward his ACL. Had a little walking cane with him as he still comes back from that knee injury. He went to Penn State. So he's thinking, I'm going to go down and watch some Penn State hockey. I haven't played football in a while. My team's done. And boy, was he pumped up in the locker room, Frank.
I mean, this is as good as it gets. Look how excited he is.
Got some sort of sledgehammer. Yeah, sledgehammer, which he breaks. And watch him give this kid a little low
see their faces
side
like,
five.
Oh my God, he broke it.
Side 5. Ow! And the guy shakes his hand as he walks. Oh, yeah. We'll make it. We can make a new sledgehammer.
This is one of the great NFL players and one of the great Penn State alums. To have him come down to Madison to meet the Nittany Lions hockey team this is pretty special.
Yeah, he was about 5 rows behind the Penn State bench all game, and obviously the Big Ten cameras took him a lot, and he was very vocal. And after the game, Guy Gadowski pointed right at him. He had talked to the team before the game as well, and so obviously the fact that they won, bring him back in again. And so that was really cool. That's big for someone of his stature, future Hall of Famer, Pro Football Hall of Famer, to put a jersey on Penn State and those kids. I mean, that's a memory they'll never forget, Frank. Like when he goes in the Hall of Fame, all those guys in that room will be like, they'll tell the story.
Yeah, and now they've got the clip to prove it. And by the way, what happened that week? Like the coaches didn't shake hands after that game. Guy Gadowski seemed pretty upset. Like that was a mess in Wisconsin over the weekend.
It got chippy. We almost had another fight like we had the BU when the kids took the gloves off, and like we were close. I didn't see anything like Penn State was hunting, and these players are hyper competitive. It's going to happen. So I was surprised that Wisconsin felt like it was bad enough not to shake hands at center ice, which they do in college hockey after every game. And the players did, and it was fine. The players shook hands, and there was no incident. But yeah, for whatever reason,
shake hands.
Yeah. All right, you got to speculate to accumulate in life sometimes. If you did that with your Apple stock a few years ago, another good day today.
Yeah.
But sometimes you have to turn to hockey. You're on a 2-game winning streak. You see the plus 11.1 units from Frank. And now you're riding that Boston Bruins train, looks like, into New York City.
I am because, the Rangers, we know they have not been very good, and they've not been good since they sent out the letter. Reminder that maybe if you wanted to hold up on this, you'd say, well, the Bruins did slap the Rangers 10-2 like 2 weeks ago. So maybe there's going to be a revenge factor here this time at MSG. The Rangers have struggled on home ice, and they're also returning from a long trip. I still like the Bruins here, who have been playing pretty well of late. To say that this is pretty close to a coin flip, only at minus 118 on the money line, I like the Bruins in this spot. So Bruins minus 118 on the money line, trying to get up to plus 12 units on the season. That would be pretty fun. These odds courtesy of our friends at BetMGM.
Yeah, the Bruins with 62 points to the second wild card team. Montreal's the first wild card team, but the Bruins are just a point behind Buffalo in the Atlantic, and they're 6 clear of Tampa. So it sure looks like Detroit, Tampa is safe. It's just a matter of, one of those teams will face either Buffalo, Montreal, or Boston or Toronto, if Toronto can make a run, which you're not too bullish about. So there's still some multiple scenarios there for that opening round Atlantic Division matchup.
Mm-hmm.
And you could have what's cool, Frank, is you could have the Atlantic could get both wild cards, and I think they will. I think the Atlantic Division is going to get both wild cards. So you're going to have the team that comes in first is going to get Atlantic Division team anyway, which is kind of cool, right? You get 2 opening series from the same division.
I would love that, and I think the Atlantic has been the way stronger division.
It has so far. So the Bruins looking good, 8-2. They've won 8 of the last 10. They're a +12 goal differential. So we'll see how they do for Frank tonight in New York City. The Rangers continue to be last in the Eastern Conference, 48 points, 7 behind Ottawa. Unbelievable. All right, the last word. Hat-trick City. Brock Nelson, Beckett Seneca got the 24th and 25th hat-tricks of the month of January, Frank. That's tied for second most in a calendar year in the past 35 years. The only one with more, March of 96, 26. So in March of 96, we had 26. We got 25 already, and we got a week to go, Frankie Pie.
Yeah, 25 hat tricks in 25 days of the month is insane. So I don't know what's gotten into these guys. The amazing part is, as I'm looking through the scores every night and I'm tracking everything, there could have been way more. There's a bunch of guys that have had 2-goal games that don't make it to 3. And yeah, we've had a couple of these that come in on the empty netter, which is fine. But I just, the statistical oddity of this, in theory, the math is that over NHL history, you have a 1 in 20 chance. So for every 20 games, there's 1 hat trick. The fact that we're 25 days into January and at 25 hat tricks, it's been bonkers. So I mean, it looks like we're going to set a record for most in 1 month.
Yeah, like I said, March of 96, that was, that's when Mario had 69 goals that year. Jágr had 62. McGillney had 55. Lemieux had 161 points. Jágr 149. Sakic 120. That's a high goal scoring year. And the fact that we're going to probably pass that for most hat tricks this season, that's amazing. Like I said, it's tied for second most in a calendar month in the past 35 years, and looks like we're going to break that record of 26 set in March of 96. Good stuff. I got to go to the airport and fly to St. Louis. I got Blues Stars tomorrow on ESPN Plus with TJ Oshie. Then I head to Detroit for Detroit Caps Thursday. I love Little Caesars. Haven't been there in about 3 years. Looking forward to that. Then I go to Anaheim, see the Ducks in person. Sunday, Ducks Vegas. So Victory Plus viewers, that game will be on ESPN Plus. You can start planning now. So Frank, I will see you tomorrow from the Westin in St. Louis, 11 o'clock Central. I can't forget. Usually I do this show.
I send you a text. 11 a.m. Central.
I know.
11 a.m.
Normally noon Eastern. I got to do the math. I got to go backwards. 3, 2, 1. So for Frank Seravalli, I am John Buccigross. We're here 5 days a week, 9 Pacific for you Duck fans, and 11 Central for you Star fans. We'll see you tomorrow on Victory Plus, like we always do.